Testing 1, 2. All right, looks good. If there's anybody in here right now, go ahead and post something in the chat so I see there's anybody in here. Otherwise, I'm not going to start talking until there's actually people in here. That would be a little weird, just me talking to myself into an empty room. Hey, Josh, can you hear me okay? How's my audio? I unfortunately don't have enough USB spots for my actual microphone, so I'm having to use my built-in Mac microphone. Thank you for your first question. Seeing that now. Professional videographer, my work. Okay, cool. Thank you for letting me know about the audio. Just reading your question now. Do you think AI could handle selecting the best clips, organizing them, and then trimming them to length in Adobe Premiere? Genuinely, they found a way to do this possible. $1 million idea. So there's actually another AI product that I've found and I've used before. It was called Spingle AI. I think I talked about it in a different one of my videos. And that was fine. It seemed like those guys were improving their product quite a lot. I'm going to pull it up here on screen. Um, Spingle AI. They have a little bit of a weird looking mascot, but their whole shtick is basically exactly what you're trying to do. I think the guy that made this was originally like a wedding videographer, and so that's like, he's designing the whole thing to be specifically for that. And when I tried it, it seemed like it worked, but I also don't have wedding footage, and so I couldn't really try the thing. But yeah, I would say give this thing a shot. It might do exactly what you want. And if not, I guess my answer in terms of the thing that I'm building is yes, it's theoretically possible. There is a way to do it. I don't, to be honest, have it in the roadmap for what I'm building, at least in the immediate future, because that's, I'm optimizing it for my style of videos that I'm making. And the part that gets kind of complicated is what AI is really good at is it's really good at looking at a transcript script and doing everything based on words. I mean, it's, they're built off of text, right? The thing that it's not great at is looking at videos. You can go and you can have it export individual frames, and I made a tool call for that for the model so that it can go and look at an individual frame and then deduce out whatever it needs from that. But when you're doing montage style videos or wedding videos, the AI would need to be looking at so many frames and analyzing them that it would just take an extraordinary amount of time. So that's the challenge I see with that application. But yeah, I wish I knew more about how the Spingle guys built their thing, because then I could give a better answer about the technical side of it. But I don't. It's not really clear exactly how they're doing it. I'm guessing that they're probably using Gemini and then doing some combination of video description generation and yeah, taking specific frame screenshots and then analyzing them. But I just genuinely don't know. The part about syncing stuff to syncing beats to audio is a little bit easier because an audio waveform can be interacted with code, which makes it easier for AI agents to be able to do that. But yeah, I think one of the bigger problems that I'm kind of facing with this whole project and still trying to figure out what the right way is to navigate is that everything is vertically integrated in what I'm doing. So the way that I film my videos, the actual pre-production process, the way that my scripts are formatted, the way that I film the videos in front of a teleprompter where I'm taking multiple discrete takes, is built specifically so that my editing process afterwards can do all the stuff on it. So like if I was making this hyper specifically for wedding videos, I'm sure I could create something that would work. But like trying to adapt the thing that I'm building to these other forms of videos is kind of hard. So yeah, that's the story on that. As far as your question of how, and yeah, thanks for all the questions. I appreciate it. So for your question of how I got started on this, let me pull up my browser again. One moment. Let's see if I can. So the way I got started on this was a few years ago. I started a YouTube channel called Micro Safari where I educated people on microscopes, and it was very much a similar thing where it was like talking head informational videos, highly technical. And this channel, ended up doing fairly well. I ended up winning the search terms for all the major like microscope purchasing technical advice search queries on it, and I ended up building an e-commerce company off of it. So we started selling our own microscope kits and custom other microscope stuff. But there was so much B-roll that I was having to deal with all the time. And it was easily my least favorite part was recording all of the B-roll and then having to edit it all together. I mean, it would take me hours and hours and hours of, editing and compiling the footage time and getting microscope clips off of my microscope cameras, and it was just a mess. And so that's why I ended up, basically that was the inspiration for building BuzzRolls, which is, or at least I should say the AI B-roll, search version of BuzzRolls, kind of the main product that we have in our suite. I'm going to differentiate what's BuzzRolls right now versus what's BuzzRolls Studio. BuzzRolls Studio is the like Claude inside of Premiere thing that I'm using to make the YouTube channel right now. And ultimately, I think this is where things are going. But BuzzRolls is kind of like was the gateway to now pivoting into BuzzRolls Studio. So that was the idea, was that we wanted to make it easier for editors to find B-roll, make it super fast for them because, for certain editors, it's like hours and hours of their day and it's just completely mundane, boring work. And we wanted to do that for them since AI is fairly good at this type of a task. So yeah, and then I'm personally just super interested in kind of like AI type stuff. And so, I do a lot of AI, I guess, agentic harness engineering, like AI driven development. And so, I'm really passionate about this subject. So this is, I think, where the channel is going in the future. So Annapolis, to answer your question, is this coming to DaVinci? The answer is hopefully in the future, yes. My basic strategy in this is that I'm building this for my own use case. And I use Premiere, right? And so I'm building this specifically for Premiere to start. And then once I validate that I can make a really great platform inside of Premiere and people are using it, people are liking it, and it's super helpful for them, then eventually I will be able to port it over to work for DaVinci Resolve. I haven't looked into Final Cut, if in case there's any Final Cut people watching this. I do know that DaVinci Resolve is way easier to integrate plugins into. I'm pretty sure Final Cut is much more guarded as a castle. And so, it's just, I don't even know how I would go about doing that for Final Cut. But yeah, DaVinci definitely possible. And that will be the next thing that we work on after we confirm that Premiere works well. So Joshua, can you tell me more about what you're building? I found you from the recent video. So what I'm building is a YouTube channel that I'm building a YouTube channel where the videos are automated using an automation process that are then making those videos. And I'm teaching about it as I build the plane as I fly it. So I think that this video production roadmap is kind of like the North Star, the Holy Grail of what I'm building. So each one of these things is a different step in the process. And if you look right here, this is where we're at right now. These are the different portions of my video production process that can be automated with AI right now effectively. And every one of my videos right now is these specific production portions are being done by the AI. But every week I will be adding another capability to the AI sort of like ecosystem. So ultimately, the way this architecture works is that, and I think I talked about it somewhere in the video. And I appreciate you asking questions. One of the big reasons I wanted to do this Q&A like longer form live stream was that this is a very complex topic, and there's a lot that goes into it, way more than I can fit into a 7-minute video. And unfortunately, I'm bound by the YouTube algorithm gods that favor retention over depth. So I'm having to kind of like gloss over a lot of actually quite complex parts. But this little flow chart here kind of shows how this kind of system works. So like, obviously I'm working inside of Premiere Pro. I edit my videos inside of there. I wanted to be able to have an AI agent. In my case, I use Claude, but really you can use whatever you want. It can be ChatGPT Codex, it can be OpenClaw, it can be Cursor, Claude Cowork. There are tons of, unlimited number of options here. But in any case, basically what I'm doing is I'm giving Claude access to doing things inside of Premiere for me. So for example, like here we have a tool call, remove silences. When it calls the remove silences tool, it then runs a script that then removes out all of the silences for Claude. But each one of, going back to that initial roadmap, each one of the, or was it? There it is. Each one of these individual little icons here is a tool call that Claude can use to do different portions of the editing process. So for example, one of the ones that I'm going to be doing soon is this animated graphics tool call. So in my timeline, Claude can see my timeline, it can understand the transcript, etc. And then if it decides that a certain section would look good with animated graphics, it can run a tool call called create animated graphics that then goes and runs an entirely like separate workflow that's in and of itself quite complicated to then create a graphic that can put it back into the video for you. I'm still kind of working through how do I like explain the thing that I'm building in a way that's, I guess, digestible for a wider audience. Because I think that like highly technical, like AI first developers they know what an MCP server, they know what a scale is, they know what all of these jargon terminologies are that I'm using. I think those kind of people will immediately understand what I'm talking about. The part that I'm trying to figure out is how do I make an educational channel that kind of gives people insight into what are we doing at the forefront of AI native video production, just so that people kind of like understand where the ecosystem is moving to. But yeah, I'm explaining it in a way that's like digestible for people is something I'm still actively trying to figure out. So for your next question, Adobe did create a connector for Claude. What does it actually do? The answer is that, and I'm actually considering making an entire video about this. What was it called? It was called Adobe Creativity. I think that was, I had it open. Oh, I just had it. Where was it? This one. Yep, Adobe for Creativity, a new way to create with Adobe, now in Claude. As per usual, Adobe has a tendency to do this. They released a product and their marketing materials for it make it sound like, holy crap, they just built a thing so that Claude can control all of your Adobe apps for you. I mean, they make it sound like that somewhere. It was like, it brings the best out of all of our desktop tools straight into Claude. I think they said, yeah, right here. But what they say is drawing on pro-grade tools from all of these different things, you can do stuff with Claude. So I did end up installing this thing and trying it out for myself. The answer is it basically like almost does nothing useful. Sorry, Adobe team, if you're watching this, I know you worked real hard on this thing. For example, what it will do is that it gives Claude the ability to take a file on your computer, upload it to Creative Cloud. Creative Cloud does something, some transformation to it, and then it will return it back to your computer in a transformed state. So, for example, it will you can have Claude resize your video for you by sending it to Creative Cloud, and then it'll return it back. But this is all just happening on the file level. So if you send it an MP4 file, it sends you an MP4 file back. And I looked at the tool calls that it actually has access to right now, and they're all like not that useful. There were a couple of them that were kind of cool. I think they did, I think, add generative extend, which is one of Photoshop's inbuilt AI tools that's pretty useful. But I mean, the rest of them just like are basic enough that you can like Claude can kind of already do it without the connector. So for example, if it wants to resize a video, it can just simply use a bash command like in the terminal itself to then transform the video without having to go through Creative Cloud. So like most of the tools that they have released are already deprecated. So I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll start adding some better stuff to this, but also understand, like, I'm pretty deep in the Premiere Pro coding landscape and how Premiere Pro works under the hood. And there are some technical reasons why it's really hard for the Adobe team to build the thing that I built. Specifically, it's like an organizational risk problem that they're too careful about the features that they release. They're not willing to release anything that's overly experimental or like prone to breaking and failure. Whereas, I'm just like some guy that can make an early access Premiere Pro MCP. And so like I can release something that works, 95% of the time. And yeah, it breaks 5% of the time. But I hope I've made that clear that this is early access and it does break sometimes. So yeah, they did the same thing with what was that generative extend, where you can like extend out video clips inside of Premiere Pro. When they first released the marketing announcements that we're releasing this massive new game-changing thing, and then it was in beta for a year and a half, and then once they finally released it out of beta, you can only extend clips by I think it's like less than a second, and it's not even that good, and like so, but their marketing makes it seem like it's some profound game-changing thing. Anyway, this is a whole rant, but I'll move on to the next subject. So next question. Benjia, who I don't know how to say your username. Hi, I'm a videographer. I make weekly announcement videos for my church. I also make event recaps, shorts, and other long-form stuff. Working on getting fully automated shorts from our sermon clips, but it's been rough. So that actually sounds like something that is definitely very possible to do with a video automation pipeline, and to do it with something like Claude inside of Premiere. So like BuzzRoll Studio, the thing that I built that gives Claude access to the underlying timeline operations inside of Premiere. Like you can build on top of that product to be able to do that type of work for yourself. Turn longer form things into shorts, or to do sermon videos. I mean, because it's all pretty much transcript based. I mean, it's all speech, right? Sermon's a big speech, so it'll do well with doing that. If I open up right, so going back here, just to clarify for anybody that's maybe hopping on the stream, BuzzRoll Studio, the thing that I'm talking about when I talk about Claude inside of Premiere, is the product that I built that I'm using myself to make the videos on my channel, and that's this portion right here. It's basically like a way to connect your AI agent inside of Premiere and give it access to doing stuff. However, it's more than just an MCP server that connects it through. Reason being is if you just give like Claude access to controlling the timeline, like all the raw operations on the timeline, it's basically going to take forever and kind of fail because, for example, even doing a single split in the timeline is actually like 20 raw operations for Premiere. And so part of what I'm building is a set of tool calls that Claude gets access to that bundles all of these raw operations inside of just like a single command, edit a role, then instructs it how do you bundle these commands together to make it so it works more efficiently. So in your case for the sermons, basically what you would need to do, because you would need to build basically an automation that's like specific to your use case. The way to do that would be that you basically create your own skills, as it's called in Claude, that are basically bundled sets of instructions for how it does specific workflows. So there is sort of development work. And, again, overall, this is one of the challenges that I have with this product, and how, especially with where it is early access, that this is so specifically built for my use case and the way that I edit videos, that it probably is like, it's not going to out of the box work as well for other people's types of videos. Is some development work that you can do on top of the thing that I've built to make it work substantially better for your use case. But again, as this channel progresses, as this project progresses, it'll get better. It'll get more generalized. It'll work for more people's use cases, and I will get better at being able to like explain what I mean by what do I mean by agentic harness? What do I mean by building on top of the raw primitives? There's so much like technical work on the frontier right now, that I'm trying to like distill down into digestible things. So hopefully it'll make it a little easier for people in the future. To answer your question, does BuzzRolls connect to a stock provider, or does it generate its own stuff? It connects to a stock provider. So our very first version of BuzzRolls was that it was doing all AI generated images and video, but we very quickly found out that it's just way too expensive to do that. It's like 8 seconds. Sorry, what was it? $5 for 8 seconds of AI generated video that was like not even that good, and you generally had to re-roll it a couple times to get what you wanted out of it. So we ended up pivoting to doing real human B-roll, and our AI is just like, its job is just being really good at selecting the AI from the stock footage provider. So right now we're using Pexels as our main provider. I'll be honest, that's actually our biggest limiting factor right now in the like how good BuzzRolls is as a product. Is it's not its ability to select like good B-roll that like matches the topic and matches the emotional tone and all of that stuff. The real limiting factor is just simply that the Pexels library is not huge. So we are working with Storyblocks on getting them integrated into our platform. The problem with Storyblocks is that they charge $5,000 upfront to integrate with their service, and then you pay per user that you have as well. And so, I mean, where we're at with the finances of this thing, it just doesn't make sense for us to integrate Storyblocks quite yet. If this thing, like, I'll say that after I released that first video, this is getting a lot more traction. We've had more downloads of this than we've ever had. So, I mean, once the finances kind of turn and we get enough downloads that it makes sense for us to invest in Storyblocks, we will do that, and that will upgrade the quality of this product by quite a lot. But for certain content niches, for example, like geography videos, and like lifestyle shots, there's already plenty of good quality footage on Pexels that this product works for. So certain subset of our user base gets, like, BuzzRolls works perfectly for them. They don't have any issues. And then a bunch of other people are like, well, it doesn't work because I need a bunch of videos of people at a furry convention. And so your thing doesn't work because there's not enough furry convention stock footage B-roll. But you know what? Who does have that? Storyblocks. I actually looked it up. Also, it's way cheaper to use existing stock footage than doing AI generated stuff. It's the difference between, like over an order of magnitude difference in price, with better quality doing real human footage. Can't find many YouTubers talking about video editing with AI. Really appreciate doing this. Appreciate you watching and making that kind comment. I mean, it's a super, super new space, and I think that like it's a really hot space right now. And when I see the videos that come up on my suggested feed, they're all like crazy hype masters that are like oh my God, Claude just like destroyed Premiere. It's over. Like, and then they show, them making like they like vibe coded a little thing where it uses remotion to make like a crappy animation. And then it's like, all right, dude, like that was not like it's not actually video editing. Like, yeah, you got to make an animation, but it's not that profound. So, I mean, the goal with this channel is that, I want to be the guy that's like actually authentically like building this stuff at the frontier and like bringing people along for the ride so that they can see like where things are hard, where things are easy. Because like I think the reality is nuanced. It's not that I think that people have this notion of like the world being black and white. It's either like AI is going to take our jobs and like destroy humanity, or it's going to be not useful at all. And I think the reality is that like AI is really good at certain tasks and it's really bad at other tasks. And so, and we're discovering this as we build at the frontier. And I'm actively discovering this. And so that's kind of what I want to bring people along the ride for, is like, I guess as an example to make it concrete, in making in giving Claude the ability to make its own animated graphics inside of Premiere that work, beautifully. I mean, like, for example, this roadmap graphic is made using this animated graphics pipeline that I built out for myself. But as part of this pipeline, one thing that Claude is really bad at is like it will, for example, if you look at this animated graphics icon, it's ever so slightly misaligned, and Claude cannot see misalignment to save its life. So, like for example, the alignment of these things, it just could not get it right. And so, part of my pipeline is that I actually built a setup where it opens a web browser that then gives me access to shifting around the clips for it. So it does all the code, it does the animation, but it's just at the end asking me to, hey, can you like push these things around a little bit to make sure that it looks right to the human eye? Because to the AI eye, everything looks aligned perfectly, but to the human eye, you can tell that something is a little misaligned. And so, that takes me what, 5 seconds to align stuff really quickly for it. And so it's like, I let it do the part that would take me a really long time that it can do really fast. And then I do the part that is really easy and fast for me to do and then hand it back off. I think it's much more like collaborative, like what this is going to end up turning into, and just like the ecosystem, or I should say the frontier of AI native video production in general, is going to move more and more in the direction of being a collaborative thing between like us and our AI agents. I don't think it's going to be like they do all of it or not none of it, basically. Um, this will be posted in your live section. Oh, will this be posted in your live sections? Um, I think that I'm gonna post this probably for a couple of days after, and then once I release my next video, I'm probably gonna unlist it. The problem with these lives is that this is actually a bigger problem. I'll vent a little bit of frustrations as a YouTuber right now. Um, YouTube, let's go to some random person's channel. Actually, let's go to my old channel right now. Microscope. Do I still show up? Yeah, there I do. So this is my old YouTube channel. So like, if you look at, the videos tab, which I think is where most people go to watch your videos, it can like it gets pretty cluttered, especially if you like, let's say that I post all these live streams. It will clutter out all of the like highest viewership videos. And so I would either have to make a second channel where I can post them indefinitely, or I would have to unlist them after a certain amount of time. I just wish that YouTube would have some other tab that's like, you know, uh, I mean, really what the right solution is in my mind is suggested videos instead of being latest or popular. But I digress. Because yeah, so for example, like my friend, actually, he's probably a better example of this. Cyber. So he had this problem recently. Here he is. So he makes whatchamacallit, like AWS security videos. And you look at his most popular videos, he made these things that are getting, lots of good views. And these are like shorter videos that are kind of meant to reach a broader audience and I guess get people into the top of the viewership funnel. But then eventually, you have viewers that are more engaged with the channel and they want to see more in-depth videos. And so he's now making videos that are far more in-depth. But if you look at his channel page, it's now just completely bloated with videos that 99% of people are not going to watch, and then his actual banger videos that most people want to watch are buried and hard to find. And so yeah, basically I don't want to turn into this problem for buzz rolls. That's why I'm probably going to um, I'm going to unlist them. I think that's the right solution at this point. Or a second channel. I don't know. I also haven't figured out yet if I'm going to do these live streams regularly or not. I might have some other things. Cyber has a live section. That is true, actually. I guess that is fair. It doesn't show up on the main page. Thank you. I guess I'm unfamiliar with how lives show up on YouTube. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to keep them up or not. I'll think on that. I'll think on that. If you have any thoughts on that, please let me know. Be curious to hear all of your thoughts on whether or not I should keep them up. Also, I actually haven't ever listened to a Moonshots podcast. I know which one you're talking about. And I guess I'm like very much in the like entrepreneurial kind of like tech space, or I like enjoy watching those kind of podcasts and videos. I'm really into the like Dwarkesh podcast, highly technical stuff on there. Serpentine Podcast Network also has some really good stuff. Out of interest, what do you use Claude Cowork for? Hard to find someone who actually gives practical use cases. Okay, so this is a good question. I actually don't personally use Claude Cowork, and the reason is because, not that it's a bad product, it's a phenomenal product. I'm going to pull it up here, what I personally use. I personally use Claude Code in VS Code because my primary format is as a developer. And so, I'm doing a lot of stuff in code. Buzz Rolls is, of course, built with, it's built agentic first. And so basically anything you can do inside of Claude Code, you can do inside of, anything you can do inside of Claude Cowork, you can do inside of Claude Code, but Claude Code gives you access to doing way more things and having way more control over what you're doing. And so I'm enough of a power user that like it's just I feel limited in Claude Code. I think Claude Cowork. I think for most people it's the right answer because it's like it hides a lot of the complexity. But in my case, I want to see the complexity. I want to have maximum control over the context window. I want to be able to understand exactly every tool call that it's running, every bash command that it's running. I want to be able to read it and investigate into it. So to answer your question about what I actually can practically use, I'm not going to say Claude Cowork, but the equivalent in my situation I actually use it for quite a lot of stuff. So for in terms of like business administration, and actually let me open up, I'll just show the raw. You guys are getting a real behind the scenes look here. I'm going to be opening up our actual code base for all of our business right now. So you can see what that looks like in my setup. And hopefully, let me just check to make sure you can see it on screen right now properly. Yeah, you can see most of it. Okay. So the way that this works is if you look over here in the sidebar, let's just hide those because those are all earlier conversations. So if you look over here in the sidebar, this is where we have the code bases for multiple things. So for example, this is the code base for Buzz Rolls. Our internal name for it is Generative Insert Plugin. Our website has a code base inside of here that Claude can interact with. This is inside of VS Code, my code editor, and then obviously Claude Code gets access to all of this. Subabase is our backend. This is where all of our like users live, all of our authentication, all of our servers, everything is in here. But then in addition to that, I also have all of Buzzroll's operations in here. So financials, business documents, everything else like that. So to give an example of how it's useful for me, instead of me doing my own expense like bookkeeping, I just dump all of my expense receipts, all the PDFs and everything in there, and then I have a workflow where I can just tell it. Actually, I don't know if I made a workflow for it yet. I guess I probably didn't, but the idea would be that you write a workflow that anytime you want to do the bookkeeping, you build a skill that's do bookkeeping, and then you just type enter, and it tells Claude, it tells it to do the instructions for all of the bookkeeping for you. And it works great for this kind of an application because it can go look in the receipt, figure out what it was for, estimate, what expense category it should go to, and that takes that off of my plate. In addition, I actually, you ready for this? I actually don't respond to my own comments on my YouTube channel through my YouTube channel. Claude does it, and actually I'll give a demo of that right now, and I'm gonna have to open up a different folder. Actually, is it underneath that? So another example of what Claude I can use to agentically automate my own internal processes. Let's say that I want to, what did I name it? I think it was like comment triage. Yeah, YouTube comment triage. I just hit this command. What it will do is it'll fetch my latest video. Oh, and actually I need to specify not the live stream. It'll fetch my latest video, go and look at all of the comments on that video and check for any of them that I haven't responded to yet, and then go pull them, take a look at them, filter out the ones that are actually useful for me to respond to. These are people that have genuine questions or things that are, maybe somebody's being nice and I give a thank you, whatever. And it also will group them, if I'm getting 10 comments that are all asking me, hey, can you build this for whatever, DaVinci Resolve? Maybe it tells me, hey, I need to actually go and pin a comment that says, yes, DaVinci Resolve coming someday, not exactly right now. So that's what it's actively doing this right now. So I connected this to my YouTube already. I built all the plumbing to make this work already, so it kind of just works. Yeah, so it's getting the recent videos, looking at the most recent upload, fetching the comments, showing the counts, extract threads that I haven't responded to yet, group them into categories. And it's actually drafts replies because I work inside of this agentic workspace so often, it has like memory and certain knowledge about the product that we're building anyway. So like a lot of the comments it actually can respond with perfectly good information as much as I could. If somebody's asking a technical question, it'll be able to answer it for me because it's actually like my coding agent. And so, I let it draft all the replies for me first, and then I'll go through and edit them or, write my own. Sometimes I'm like, it doesn't sound like me. I'm going to just do it myself. So that is one example, yet another example of how I'm integrating this into like how Claude Cowork, or I guess I should say, the original question was, how do you use Claude Cowork to be useful? What are the actual useful applications? I changed the question to be more generally, what can you actually do with agents in your workflow to make it more useful? And that's my answer, is that I use it for a bunch of little things such as this. Another one, what's another good example? Another good example is that anytime that I make a change to the website in the code, I have a slash command that's called test site, where it'll actually go open a web browser and go basically test my entire website to make sure I didn't break any functionality. That's another example of how I use it. I have it actually answer emails for me as well. There's a connector inside of here. So I'll go here and say, use the Gmail MCP to check for new emails and respond. And then it'll go and it'll look in my Gmail, check to make sure that I've responded to all my emails. If there's anything unresponded to, it'll read it and then see if it has the information that it needs to respond to it properly. And if it doesn't, it'll just surface it for me. All right, so I'm going to leave up my other ones while that's completing. You guys can continue watching that as it works. All right, next question. I see I'm getting a little behind here. Do you show how to connect the Claude Premiere Pro or making a tutorial on it? Yeah, I need to make a tutorial on it that I'll post on the BuzzRoll Studio website. It's actually fairly straightforward how to get it to work, but I mean, I don't know. It's straightforward for me because I'm deep in it, obviously. So yeah, okay, Claude just finished up. So it went and it looked, it drafted 11 replied comments for me. 3 of them it thinks especially need my judgment. 3 of them it skipped because they were just like negative comments or low effort comments. And then a bunch of them already I had replied to. So we can look at this file and then see what that looks like. Let me just, there we go. Okay, so these are my comments, the document that it created for me. So basically it's saying, hey, you're getting a lot of comments for people wanting to know if you can make it for DaVinci Resolve or Premiere Pro. Is this only for Premiere? How does this work? How do you connect it to Claude? So it already drafts a reply for that. I built a Premiere plugin, BuzzRolls, that runs inside of Premiere, then wrote a layer that pretends to be, okay, so this is actually like, for example, inaccurate information, hence why I'm not just having it respond automatically. The reason this is inaccurate is because this is actually outdated memory information that Claude has. And so like it tried its best to make a reply that it thought was correct. This is actually incorrect. That's why I would just in this document go and where was that? Yeah, I would just go and edit the reply that it, made. And then I would save this document. And then once I like edit all of the comments that I need to respond to, Claude will then go take my approved comments that I've changed or whatever, and then upload them to the YouTube API, and it'll respond on my behalf like that. So yeah, anyway, now this other one, looked at my Gmail, looks like there was one email that I needed to respond to, that it made a draft for me already, and it's in my Gmail inbox ready to approve or edit or whatever. Okay, so sorry, I'm getting a little behind here. Let me continue. I think there is a live tab also. Southern Boy Abroad. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, actually, my developer background is relatively light. I mean, I started 8 years ago building museum exhibits where I would code the little like circuit boards, the microcontrollers. But like, that was some pretty basic coding stuff, nothing super sophisticated. I would say that like just looking at the trajectory of my kind of like career, and actually I'll just open my LinkedIn real quick to, come on, baby, hold on one moment, please hold. I need to open a Safari tab so that I can open up my LinkedIn so I can show you that I don't have a developer background, or at least not a substantive one. Am I actually even logged into LinkedIn? I don't know if I am. Oh, it looks like I am. I also need to update it. So, I mean, in my background, I used to build museum exhibits. That's actually how I got my career started out. I was doing electronics. I was like soldering, stuff like that, doing some very basic microcontroller coding, very, very basic. Continued with being an exhibits developer. Then I built a makerspace. Still at this point, I was doing very basic coding. My knowledge was pretty small, but really where I think that my skill set kind of like blew up was I did a contract at BP where I was building a device for them, but it required a lot more coding, and that's early on when Claude first came out and it first started getting good at doing coding, I was, I guess, at the very beginning of that. But the before it was good at coding, the thing that it was good at was answering questions about coding and just like an incredible tutor. And so like my own abilities have just completely skyrocketed because I've been able to learn and ask technical questions from, AI basically. They're super technical things. So like I think that honestly, this is like the best time to start, and it's not too late for people to learn this space. I don't think you need prior developer knowledge. I think that like the ability to get that knowledge and to have a personalized tutor that gives you just as accurate information as like, I have a lot of professional software developer friends, and like the knowledge they give me on things is like just as accurate as what the knowledge that like Claude has these days. And so, yeah, I just think that like it's, yeah, just, give it a try and you can learn so much. Um, I pray I remember back. How are you able to use Claude Code in your VS Code? How am I able to use Claude Code in my VS Code? There's a Claude Code extension inside of VS Code. It's right here. It's just click on the extensions, and they have their own thing that they built for it. Um, yeah, it works well. It's got some problems, but it works. Um, Southern Boy, I have never used Whisperflow. I actually don't even know what that is, to be honest. I'm gonna look it up right now. Whisperflow, effortless voice dictation, don't type, just speak. Oh, okay, so this is actually an interesting question. Do I type or do I speak? I have been trying to figure out what the optimal interaction interface with AI agents is. I have kind of landed on typing, as I prefer typing to speaking, because the limiting factor is actually not how fast I can type or how fast I can speak. The limiting factor is how fast can I, in my own head, formulate instructions that are specific enough to get the agents to give good results whilst still giving them just the right amount of context so that they have all the information they need to accomplish the task at hand that you are having them do. The results you get out of AI models gets substantially better the more you can shrink the scope of what you're asking them to do. So the more you understand what you're asking of them to do, the better results it's going to give, because the results are going to be really close to what you asked for. Like AI is getting really good at following instructions, really, really good. And so like making sure that your instruction, and right there's this concern where like eventually in the far future, the concern is like AI doomsday is that AIs are so good at following instructions that you say, make me make me a paperclip factory that makes as many paperclips as possible. And then it kills all of humanity because like people's homes were taking up the space for land that could be used for paperclip factories or whatever. And I don't think that we're actually going that direction. I don't think they're like that. I guess like that's not in a future I really see happening, but I think the general like idea of them becoming extremely good at following instructions, and just like if it does something unexpected that you don't want it to do, it's generally because your instructions were like too vague, or it did actually accomplish your instructions, just not in the way you expected it to. Okay. When's coding and backend development still in 26? I think it depends. Is it worth learning the basics of coding and backend development still in 2026? I think that the answer is it depends. I mean, it depends on what your reasoning is for wanting to go that route. I mean, if it's something that you find intellectually interesting, you're passionate about, and you're interested in, I would say absolutely yes. Like, I do not think it's too late to get in right now. We are basically at the point of being at the like early stages of the internet when it was first getting built out, and there was like so much wild west. There was so many places that you could build into. I just think that like people kind of need a reframing around where we're going, that like I think it's unreal. Like I don't think you should memorize how to code right now. I do think that's a frivolous effort. I like I would hearken this if okay, so if you look at the history of coding and like I guess computers in general, it started out with people literally programming the ones and zeros on the hardware to get it to do stuff that you wanted. And then they ended up making assembly language that kind of controlled those ones and zeros instead of them having to type them manually. And then after assembly, they created low-level programming languages that you now can, instead of interacting with the hardware through like code, you can now write languages that work across many different types of hardware. And it's easier to do that. And then, so that was like C, let's say. And then on top of C, many years later, they created higher level languages. In C, you have to do memory management. You have to be more careful about making sure that the program doesn't break itself. These higher level languages make it easier to code in a way that is like sounds a little bit more like human English. So like Python as an example reads logically a little bit more like English. And then after that, you had code linting and type safety. So now, when you were coding something, it would basically like almost like spell check your code for you, so to speak. And now we have another layer on top, which is agentic development, which now instead of coding in a programming language, you're now coding in plain language instructions, and you're building agentic systems. You're architecting the agentic systems that then go and do the development work for you. So I'll give an example in my case. The example in my case is that when I make a change to the plugin, to the BuzzRolls plugin, I made a slash command, and so I'm architecting this agentic ecosystem that codes the stuff itself, then tests it itself, then bundles it itself, then deploys it itself, then edits the website so that it will, have the change log automatically because it knows what changes were done in the code. So the slash command for that is, I think, bundle. Yeah, bundle and deploy, and then also bundle and deploy studio. Bundle and deploy kicks off this whole agentic workflow that does all this stuff. So my role now is I'm not coding in Python or whatever. I'm coding in plain language agentic instructions. So this is the skill file for the bundle and deploy. This is markdown format, but you can see it reads as just like very specific instructions in a workflow. And so every time I invoke this command, it does it right every single time because it's so specific as to the instructions of what the model is to do. And also the other CI/CD portions of this will catch any mistakes we'll catch if there are like wacky mistakes that the AI makes, it'll catch them before it deploys it as well. So there's like multiple levels. Anyway, getting off topic. Do I think it's worth learning? I think that yes, if you're interested in it, it is worth learning because we are starting in a new paradigm right now. And I don't see basically like Claude getting so good that it can do everything on its own, at least not anytime soon. Because I also just based on like understanding how these models are trained, the way they train these large language models basically gears them towards being really good at specific things and like inevitably makes them really bad at other things. So like there are things that humans are going to be really good at that AI is really bad at, and there's going to be vice versa things that AI is way better than a human at, but like Yeah. So anyway, it basically, I think this is going to turn into like a collaborative thing where we're like architecting the playgrounds, so to speak, that AI lives inside of. So yeah, yeah, I would say keep going, keep going. You know, don't stop here. Um, there's some defile concept. But yeah, Southern Boy Broad, totally. I like that's. I think that like this is becoming. If you're just like a generally like you have like good logic and good like kind of like overall high level technical understanding, absolutely great time to start right now. I think that this is good. This is a good question. If you have no coding background, is Claude Code worth messing around with to see what you can create, or should you get some basic knowledge first? That's a good question. I think that it is worth you. I think it doesn't matter, actually, is what I'll say. I would say if I was to recommend somewhere to start, I would start in the Claude desktop app with Claude Code. So like you can always vibe code stuff, most definitely. Like I think that like the border between what is vibe coding and what is like agentic harness engineering is the lines are pretty blurred. And so like you can start out by letting it vibe code something for you and you can ask questions. I mean, it is so good at explaining stuff to you. You know, what does CI CD mean? Maybe you saw that term somewhere you want to know. Um, but yeah, Claude Code can do whatever. It's basically just like a more feature rich version of chat and a more feature rich version of cowork. Like, I mean, basically what Anthropic is doing is that um, they're giving people access to these powerful capabilities at different levels because you know there are so many people that are scared by the thought of having to look at a piece of code that like that's why they just have a chat interface that is now able to do some coding behind the scenes that you can't see. So for example, in chat you can ask it, hey, make me a graphic, make me a little like tiny one page website or whatever, and it can go and do that and give it back to you. It's actually secretly coding, you just don't see any of the code. Same thing for cowork exposes a little bit more of it, and then code itself obviously like you know will show you more of the code, but even like Claude Code hides some of the complexity. So in my setup in VS Code, it shows me all of the complexity because that's the level I'm at right now. That's what I want to see. But yeah, if you're starting out early, no coding background, I would say Claude Code, perfectly safe to start here. So yeah, this is what CI/CD is. Automatically building and testing shipping code once it's pushed, so problem surface early, automatically shipping code to staging and production once it passes checks. And then if you're like, I don't know what staging or production means, you just ask it and you just keep asking questions until eventually you like have a pretty good understanding of everything that's going on. What subscription of Claude do I use? I have the max plan because I do a substantive amount of usage. Like I typically when I'm doing development work, I have I would say on average generally, so like let's say that somebody asks me to add a feature to Buzzroll Studio, the plugin. Um, I'm actually or like let's say that there's a bundle of features that I want to add. I will have one Claude code running adding a specific part of the feature. I will then start another one doing something else that's a little bit more isolated, and then a third one going and doing something else at the same time. So typically, I have multiple agents running that are then each spinning off their own sub agent teams to accomplish the task. So, like in any one given coding session, I'm probably invoking, I don't even know, 30 agents maybe. No, that's probably not true. Not 30 agents. That's way too many. Probably like 10 or something like that. And these are happening simultaneously. Like, so I get a ton, like I get value out of the Max plan because I use it so extensively. But for the thing that I'm building for Buzzroll's Studio, I need to do the token counting to actually give you a final answer on this. But when I did it like when I did made the first video with it originally, I don't remember it being like almost like it was such a small fraction of my overall usage that I was like, oh, it's basically nothing. Like I'm not going to think about it. But I need to actually have a good concept of it so I can tell people whether or not the pro plan will work well for them. So yeah. Okay, perfect. Got it. I was going to ask you the difference between vibe coding and agentic. Yeah, I mean, I think that honestly, like, we're in such a fast moving space that people are still figuring out the difference in definitions. Um, and yeah, I think that like it's so blurred, right? Like, and I think that like when people are like, "Oh, so you're vibe coding an app," I'm like, I don't know that I would say that. Like, I'm not some guy that's like typed into Claude, "Hey, make me a Premiere Pro editor, like edit my Premiere Pro video for me," and then just let it rip. Like that just wouldn't work for something this at this level of complexity. I mean, really, what I'm doing is like, I'm not writing any code anymore, but like, I am architecting the system to build itself. As another example, actually, and this I'm really excited to see how well this will work. But one of the tool calls that Claude gets access to through Buzzroll Studio is an add feature request tool call. So if our users try doing something that Buzzroll Studio can't do right now, your agent will be able to, or actually can right now, send a feature request automatically to us. And then we can have coding agents on our end that pick up that feature request, evaluate whether or not it's something that it can implement right now. Like, is it technically feasible for us to just build that in right now? And if so, kick off this whole workflow where it goes and implements the feature, it tests it, it makes sure it works, and then it hands it to me for final approval. I click one button, it deploys it, it sends out the email to that user that we just included this thing that it asked for. It can't do 100% of that right now. We can only receive the feature request right now, but like that is a system that is absolutely build outable. I just don't like. This is still midway through getting built, so someday that'll come. But um, you should teach a course for non-coding background and teach them these things. Thank you. I might do that at some point. I mean, I think that my plan for the YouTube channel is to focus on AI native video production for now. And then once I kind of like, I might get to a point where I want to go a little bit broader into a broader niche, in which case I probably will start making those types of videos. Um, but yeah, I mean, I absolutely would like to do that at some point. So yeah, I thank you all for being part of this live stream. I'm getting at my time where I gotta cut it off and go actually to a different meeting right now. So yeah, thanks all for tuning in. I appreciate you all. Let me know if you have any feedback. Feel free to post in the comments or send me an email directly at sarush@buzzrolls.com with like any feedback of what kind of videos you want to see in the future, or if you have any questions, whatever. I'm happy to chat. And yeah, the next video I'm working on right now, that video is about basically how I built Buzzrolls, kind of same format as the first video that I made, a little bit more digestible with a lot more like visualization stuff to make it easier for people. And then yeah, after that, I'm going to make a video about how I got it to make custom animations for me inside of Premiere. So thanks for tuning in, and I will see you all next time.